Okay, LinkedIn. Think I am live. This is me, Kola doing my first LinkedIn live, actually. So thank you guys for joining. I said I'd start at 1, so it's not quite 1 o'clock yet, but I thought I'd come on early just to say hello. This is me. This is also, what's cool about this as well is that this is my new office, which I'm pretty proud of, because up until now I've been kind of doing this in a different part of the house, but I now have a bigger space. So you can see I'm customizing it. I've got my Stevie Wonder, my chess piece, all sorts of things. So nice to be with you guys live. It's kind of just about 1 o'clock now, and I said I'd start off at 1 o'clock. So good to see you guys. I'm just going to do a bit of housekeeping, make sure that I am on. See, make sure I'm showing live with you guys. Yep, looks like we are. That's good. And let's close that down. Yep, I can see people saying hi. Hello to Muiwa. Nice to see you. Oh, I was on your podcast recently, which I'm looking forward to hearing the reaction on that. Hi, Victoria. Great to see you guys. Just comment in the chat box so that I know that you are here. Let me know who you are, where you're from. We can see all the LinkedIn profiles as well. Feel free to connect with each other as well. There's Les as well. Hey, great to have you. So listen, guys, it's 1 o'clock now, and I'm going to kind of kick off. What I'm doing with these LinkedIn lives is I wanted to take a time, probably like a lunchtime, in which I can share some of my thoughts on kind of the most common challenges that my clients, when I do my communication skills coaching, raise with me, the kind of most common challenges that they have when it comes to communication skills. And communication skills is wider than just public speaking, although public speaking is what I'm going to be focused on today. But it's really about how you interact, how you communicate with other people around you. Not just a work setting, although primarily that's where I talk about, but whether it's work, whether it's business, whether it's social occasions, whether it's just interaction generally. So I'm going to be using these LinkedIn Lives to tackle a specific question or specific challenge that people tend to have when it comes to communication skills, and really just try and give some help, some perspective on how to tackle those particular issues. So today, and I'm going to keep them relatively short so that it's kind of in your lunchtime period. If I keep doing it at this time, it'd be good to know whether this time works for you as well. And I'll keep it short so that it's very focused. You can have it whilst you're eating your sandwich or whatever we're all doing now that we're in lockdown kind of period. So today, what I wanted to tackle was one of the most common, possibly the most common questions that I get, and that is in regards to public speaking and specifically how to speak confidently in front of an audience. I frame it that way. Typically, the question comes to me as, I get so nervous about public speaking, I can't do it. What should I do? How can I avoid it sometimes? Right? But I'm going to frame it that way in terms of how to speak confidently in front of an audience. And the way I want to approach this, first of all, is to think about it in 3 parts. The first is why it matters, right? Because often people, because they're so concerned about their ability to speak publicly, will avoid it. That might be you, right? So you avoid opportunities and you don't take opportunities that would be available to you just because of that concern, that fear, that nervousness that makes you feel like you can't do it. Or if you do it, you're going to be found out, or people are going to laugh, or people are going to think worse of you, or whatever your particular reason is for not taking the opportunity. So we're going to talk about why it matters to be good and improve your public speaking and confident public speaking ability. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to explain why it is that you get nervous about public speaking, why it is that you are having those feelings, that apprehension, that anxiety. And then thirdly, I'm going to show you how to approach it so you actually are much more confident. So kind of 3 parts in that. So let's get on with it. The first is, why does this matter? Well, typically what happens with the clients who have asked me this question or kind of had this issue is that you realize at some point in your career that there is a limit, there's kind of a natural ceiling that you can get to or that you'll come up against that is about the distance that your natural ability, your ability to do the job can take you. There's kind of a natural ceiling for that, right? So you're good at your job, you're good at what you do, and generally that speaks for itself, but only to a certain level. And once you get to that level, what you'll start to feel is locked out. You'll start to feel, okay, but there's another level above this, or there are people above me, or there's a leadership position that I know I'm good enough to do. Why aren't I getting it? Why am I not getting to that level? Why aren't people seeing me as the person who's right for that next level in their careers? Or if it's a business, you'll find that your products are doing very well, but there gets to a stage where you feel, I know that this should be selling more. Why isn't that happening? And that is where communication comes in, because what you'll find is that that next level in your career or your business is pretty much entirely dependent, not on how good you are at what you do, because that's kind of a given when you get to that level, but on how well you can communicate your thoughts, your ideas, how well you can articulate the value of your product or your service or whatever it is. And in fact, LinkedIn have done a recent survey, I think it was about a year ago, where they listed kind of, I think it's about 50,000 skills. You know, you're on LinkedIn now, right? So those different skills that you can say that you are proficient in, there's about 50,000 of them that LinkedIn listed. And when they listed out all those different skills and asked people to rank which they felt was most important, number 2 on that list was persuasion, which is all about communication. And even Warren Buffett, if you're an entrepreneur, Warren Buffett once said that you can improve your value by 50%. You know, when Warren Buffett talks 50%, that's real money, right? 50% just by learning and improving communication skills like public speaking. So it really is important, if what you're trying to do is not coast and just do what is enough to be good at your job, but really be the kind of person that becomes a leader, that influences other people, that inspires other people, that shapes the narrative, and that really gets people considering you as somebody to pay attention to. And that is where communication skills, and in particular public speaking, comes into it. So that's the why, right? That's the why. Now, let me also deal with one of the particular concerns that people have, which is, well, okay, but why is it I get nervous, right? Why is it that before I step onto stage, or before I'm past the mic, or before I get onto the Zoom call and I unmute myself, whatever it is, right, where you're going to have to speak publicly? Why is it that the moment I start, or the moment I'm given the mic, or the moment I start speaking, everything goes out of my head, right? And my heart starts beating and I start sweating, or palpitations, or whatever it is, right? Each of us have that. So my particular one is sweat. So as you can see, I haven't got much hair left, see in the camera, right? But what happens for me when I get really nervous is kind of sweat starts to collect here and it starts to drip down. And that's when I know, oh gosh, okay, all right. I am gonna start like sweating, and it's gonna get through the whole of my head, and that's it. So that's my particular tell, as it were, as to when I'm gonna get super nervous. And the question is, why does that happen? And in particular, does that mean there's something wrong with you or strange about you? So here's the thing. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong, and it certainly doesn't mean there's anything strange about you at all. It's actually kind of physiological and almost evolutionary. So as human beings, we are built to be social. We're built to be part of a group. That's kind of how we evolved as a people. It's what makes us strong as a human race, right? But that also means that when you stand apart from the group, that triggers that kind of evolutionary fight or flight instinct that we kind of still have from our kind of reptilian brains as we evolve. So that's the evolutionary instinct that basically says, I'm alone, I'm facing something in front of me. You got to fight, which is the fight instinct, or flight, which is the runaway instinct. You know, tiger, fight or run, right? So it triggers that instinct. Now, when the body feels that, it sends a course of adrenaline all the way through your body, because that's what's going to give you the power to fight or run away, fight or flight, right? The problem is, in this modern age, we're not about to fight a tiger, and we're not about to start running away, really. We're basically standing there in front of the audience, still having to do what we're there to do, which is to go and speak. But the adrenaline is still running through your body. And so what that does is it manifests itself in some of the symptoms that you will recognize, right? Shaky hands, knocking knees, dry mouth, sweat in my case, right? You know, shaky voice, all those kind of symptoms. That's what's actually happening. It's not because you are worse than anyone else. It's not because you don't know what you're doing. It's because your body has triggered what it is trained to trigger by millions of years of evolution, which means it's fine. It's fine to be nervous. It's fine to be apprehensive. It's fine to be concerned that, is this going to go well? And for that to give you certain symptoms. So don't think of nervousness as something that means that there's something wrong with you at all. It is natural. Every speaker has it. I've done some kind of posts on famous people who were very scared of public speaking. Everyone from Beyonce, who you would think would be kind of the most naturally, you know, confident lady you think of her performing. But she actually, I think her father has talked about how one of the things that scares her most is public speaking. And indeed, performance is one of the things that even scared her. She created an alter ego called Sasha Fierce to deal with the fact that she was very concerned and scared of public speaking. So that's people like Beyonce, all the way back to Moses, right? If you're as old as me, you'll have watched the Ten Commandments movie with Charlton Heston. And, you know, Charlton Heston had this big booming voice in which he said to Pharaoh, you know, let my people go, and gave these great speeches, right? That's what we think of when we think of Moses. But actually, if you're kind of a bit of a geek like me and know your Bible a bit, right, you'll note that actually in the Bible, Moses pleads with God to not send him to go and do all the pleading with Pharaoh, because he was very slow of tongue and concerned about speaking. So he was actually scared of public speaking. Kind of the reports said that he had a bit of a stammer. So the thing is, nervousness, fear of public speaking is nothing at all to be worried about or ashamed about. It is natural. So don't worry if that is you. That is everyone from Moses to Beyonce. And that's certainly me as well. I get the butterflies before I'm about to speak. So don't worry about that. So that is part 2 of what I said I was going to address you on: why public speaking matters and why you shouldn't worry about the fact that you have the nerves when it comes to public speaking. And Sonal say, hey, Sonal, how are you doing? Nice to see you. Cool. Okay, so let's move on to the third part, which is kind of why you came for this LinkedIn Live anyway, which is what most of my clients really want to know, which is, how do you deal with it? How do you address it? So I'm going to give you 3 different elements, 3 different things to think about that I think will help you approach your public speaking in a much more confident way. The first is what I call Oprah's car, right? So bear with me, okay? So here's the thing. Back in about 2004, Oprah Winfrey was kind of in the height of her fame and power in terms of her show, The Oprah Winfrey Show. And she did an episode, I think it was the 19th season of her series, Oprah Winfrey Show, in which she gave away a car to every member of her audience, right? Gave away a car to every member of her audience. It's kind of one of the most famous Oprah Winfrey shows. And if you can go to YouTube, or if you've seen it, it's the one where she goes, and you get a car, and you get a car, and you get a car, right? She gives the car. So there's about 276 members of her audience, and she gives a car, a Pontiac G6 car, to every member of her audience. Now, what I want you to do, and it's a mental exercise I want you to do right now, right? So I want you in this moment now to think about this. Imagine you were Oprah Winfrey at that moment when she goes live with that show. So put yourself in Oprah's shoes and imagine you are Oprah and you know that you are about to give a car to every member of your audience. How do you feel? Nervous or excited? How do you feel? Nervous or excited? Now, I'm going to bet that you feel excited. Why? Of course you're going to feel excited, right? You're about to give a frigging car to every member of your audience. It's like, how great is that? You're about to give a car to every member of your audience. You're going to be excited about that because who wouldn't be, right? And think about, what would you be thinking about? You'll be thinking, what's the moment of the reveal? How am I going to suddenly, announce this? Whose lives in the audience am I going to change? How should I present it? I think in the moment Oprah gave a gift box to every member of the audience and said, one of these boxes has a car key in it. They all open it and all of them had a car key, right? So she obviously thought about that. And you'll be thinking about things like that. I can guarantee you that what you won't be thinking about is, oh, what's the sound of my voice going to be like? And what am I going to do with my hands? And are they going to like me? And are they going to laugh at me? You won't be doing any of that because you will know that you are about to give a car to every member of your audience. And once you know that, you're going to be excited and you're going to be, most importantly, confidently stepping out on stage, knowing the value you're about to give. Now, you're not a billionaire, I'm assuming. I'm certainly not. So you can't afford to actually give a car to every member of your audience. So let's take out the car part and let's substitute car for the value of your content. I want you to think about how you can create content. So what you are actually going to say that is of such incomparable value that every member of your audience is going to be blown away by it. Now that takes work, right? That takes thinking about it beforehand. A lot of the work I do with my clients is really showing them how to create that value. We don't have the time to go into that kind of thing right now, right? But the point is this: how often when you have a speech to give, when you have a presentation to give, have you invested your time deeply in knowing and learning and creating content that you know is going to be of incomparable value to your audience? That's what I mean by Oprah's car. Create something that is of incomparable value for your audience, because when you do, you will be absolutely confident about it because you know that what you are going to say is going to change their minds, it's going to inspire them, it's going to change the narrative, it's going to do whatever it is that you went into the speech wanting to do. But that requires that you put the work in to creating that incredibly valuable content so that it will achieve that purpose. And I say that because so often when my clients come to me, what they think I'm going to start with in terms of public speaking training is the techniques of what to do with your hands, right? And how to make good eye contact and things like that. Now, those things are important, but they are absolutely secondary to creating content of incomparable value to share with your audience. Because here's the thing, if you were Oprah about to give a car to your audience members, I don't care if you stumbled, I wouldn't care if you stuttered all the way through, everybody is still going to love that show. It's the same with your public speaking content. Create content of outstanding value, and that will make you confident in your delivery of that message. So that is my kind of big tip number one. Create content of outstanding value, and trust me, you will start with a huge amount of confidence because you draw that from what you are about to say. So that is my tip number one. That's really the biggest one that I kind of emphasize to people in terms of public speaking, because people often miss that. what people will do is they'll work on their slides and create beautiful looking slides and then kind of launch into the speech hoping it's going to be good, without investing the time in what is the insight, what is the message, what is the content that I'm about to deliver. So make sure you do that first of all. Okay, so tip number 2, let me take some water. So tip number 2, and for this, I'm going to give a little example, actually, a little story example involving my son, my son's a little cello player, and he's not hugely musical. He's going to hate me for saying this. He's not the most musical of guys, right? But he does really try. So he plays the cello. And when he was kind of towards the end of his primary school, we decided to move him to a new school, a really nice new school. And in the first month, actually, they asked us, once they found out he played the cello, they said, oh, we've got a concert coming up. Can he play? And of course, we're new parents and everything. We're trying to impress everybody. So we're like, yeah, of course he can play. Now, I was super nervous about it because, we're at this new school. You look at the kids, the kind of kids that, they're going to say one day one was a prime minister, that kind of place, right? So I'm kind of nervous. So I'm speaking to my son, say, okay, right, listen, you're about to give a concert. We're really got to go for this. But my son is fiercely independent. So he was determined that he was just going to practice on his own and do the work on his own. I was like, oh, come on. But, he's so independent. So I thought I'd leave it. So every day I'd hear him practice and work at his, one bar at a time. He's just going at it. And, you can hear all the mistakes. And I'm like, oh, gosh, this is going to be tough. And so we get to the day of the concert itself. And he, comes in, he's got his shirt hanging out because, that's my son, right? And he sits down and my wife and I are watching. We're super nervous. And then the first kid starts to play. And it was entirely, completely, just absolutely fine. Just okay, right? I'm not trying to be mean to the kid or anything. It was lovely, but it wasn't kind of Mozart level that we've been worrying about that everybody was going to be at. And then the next kid plays, it was fine. I think there was a beginner guitar player and that kid was fine. And then another kid played, it was fine, all fine. And then our son gets up and he's doing this piece called Jupiter's Theme, which is kind of this really majestic piece. If you've heard it, you'll recognize it. A really lovely piece. And he gets up and he nails it. Just nails it. Beautiful play, like probably the best I've ever heard him play. And, a couple of mistakes here and there, but just really, really nailed it. And everyone applauds and everyone's saying, oh, great. And we're speaking to the other parents and they're saying, wow, he's really good. How did you do that? I'm saying, look, he just really worked at it. And when I listened to the other parents, what I realized is possibly because their kids had been at the school for a while, all of them super talented, but none of them had actually put in the kind of work for that particular concert that our son had done. And the message I'm giving to you here is that this practice is the single most important factor that will determine how well you deliver your speech. How well you deliver your speech. Practice. The single biggest difference between how our son performed on that particular day compared to some of the other kids wasn't because he was more talented. He really wasn't, right? Wasn't because he had a better piece to play than the others. He really didn't. It was simply because he had practiced far more than everybody else. He had made the most of his ability by putting the work into practice. And that is what I want to emphasize with you. Oh, thank you, Nina, for your comment. Really appreciate that. That's what I want to emphasize with you. Practice. There is no substitute for it. And there is no better way to improve your public speaking ability, your communication skills ability generally. No better way to improve it than by practice. And the thing is, you will actually mark yourself out from pretty much everyone else, because I've done so many surveys and questions for people in terms of, okay, how much do you actually practice your public speaking? And very, very few people do it. Most people will only do it when they have a particular speech to give, as opposed to kind of when they don't and just practicing, improving their skills generally. And most people only do it once or twice or once or a few times without actually taking the step to do the detailed practice that will make the difference. So my tip number 2 for you when you're trying to improve your public speaking ability is to practice deeply, right? Practice routinely, especially in terms of one of the tips that I think really works is spaced out practice. So the reason that last minute practice doesn't really do very much is that you haven't given your brain enough time to assimilate and acclimatize to the new information you're trying to give it. Whereas if you space out your practice, so let's say you've got a week before your presentation and you practice on the Monday, and then you record your practice on the Tuesday and watch it back to yourself to see what you do. And then you listen to it a few times on audio, and then you practice on the Thursday and refine a little bit. And then you practice more on the Saturday, right? And then you have a rest on the Sunday, maybe once final one run through in the Sunday evening or something. By the time you get to Monday, you will have not only learnt your presentation, and I don't mean learn off by heart. In fact, I'll deal with that very quickly. So people often say, should I try and memorize the entire speech? No, don't do that, please. Because what will happen is that one little thing will throw you off and then everything will go out of your head. So what I don't want you to do is to memorize. Instead of memorizing, I want you to internalize your message. Internalize your message. So you know it so well, you've practiced it so well that actually you pretty much know it without having to think about it. That is internalizing your content. And that way, when you get up to deliver, you will be confident because you've worked on the content, right? Remember Oprah's car, so you've got a valuable message to share. And you've practiced it, so you are familiar and confident with how you're going to deliver it because you've done it before. Practice, practice, practice. You're not looking for perfection. Nobody is perfect. What you're looking for is excellence, and excellence can be achieved through practice. So that is my tip number 2. That says, Faisal, thank you very much. Yes, is this being recorded? I believe it is actually. I think it in LinkedIn, you'll find it on my feed again. So yes, I think it will be, but I'll be doing more of these. I'm going to be trying to do these every week, actually. So just look out for this. I'm going to try and share content like this related to common questions that are asked. Sonal, I know you know a lot about practice, definitely. Yes. Okay, so that's my tip number 2, practice, practice, practice. So what's my tip number 3? So my tip number 3 is kind of very simple. In a way, it's very obvious, but it really actually bears repeating. And if you know, I think it's a book by Richard Branson where he basically says, screw it, let's do it. And that's my final tip, which is be brave, right? Be brave. And I'm saying that to you because people are often looking for, how can I eliminate my nerves altogether? No, you're never going to eliminate your nerves altogether, okay? The way I want you to think about it is this. So let's say you're about to do a bungee jump, right? Or a skydive. And even if you've done loads before, or you've studied the manuals, you've read the safety briefings, you're confident in the person who's going to jump with you and all of that, you've inspected the plane, so you know it's not going to fall out of the air, you've inspected your parachute, all of that stuff, right? So you are as confident in everything else as you could possibly be. There is still that moment before you take off where you're going to be super nervous, before you jump out, rather, where you're going to be super nervous, because that is our human nature. We talked about the reasons why earlier. So when it comes to the moment as you lead up to speak, or as you lead up to jump, jump out of the plane, whatever it is, there is that moment when it just comes down to courage. It just comes down to, as Richard Branson said, screw it, let's do it. And I want you to think and almost say that to yourself in the moment before you step out on stage, or you start speaking, or you give your presentation, right? In the moment before, I want you to almost say that to yourself, screw it, let's do it. You can use an expletive if you want, I kind of do sometimes. Screw it, let's do it, right? So that you recognize that at some point it's going to be you and you just have to take the leap, right? But you know you've got your parachute, you know you've done the safety briefing, so you know you're going to be fine. So it's just the taking the step. And I want you to take the step with that mentality of screw it, let's do it. Because one of the great things about public speaking is that audiences are extremely generous. Audiences are extremely generous, extremely forgiving. Even if you mess up a bit, you'll be fine. And what you'll find actually is very much like jumping out of a plane or doing that bungee jump. It's the moment that you've just leaped that is the scariest. As soon as you've done that, everything's fine. And it's the same with speaking. The first few words when you start speaking will be the ones that you think, oh gosh, how's this going to go? But once you get into it, especially if you've internalized your message, you will be fine. So screw it, just do it. That is my final tip, number 3, for confident public speaking. So let me just recap those, because I see, Nina, you'd asked about what's the Oprah tip again. So first tip is create content of outstanding value, content or a message that nobody else has thought about, nobody else has created, nobody else has given that insight or structured it in that particular way, or whatever way it is you're going to create content of outstanding value. Nina, what that meant is there was a show that Oprah did where she gave away a car to her audience and everybody loved it. And it meant that Oprah was able to walk out on stage being super confident because she knew she was about to give a car to her audience. Now, you can't give a car to your audience, but you can substitute the car for the outstanding value that you're about to deliver. And you will be just as confident as if you were Oprah about to deliver a car to every member of your audience. So tip number 1 is create a message of outstanding value. Tip number 2, practice more than everybody else, right? Be the one that puts in the extra work, because you will directly benefit from the work that you do. Tip number 3, just go for it. Be brave, right? Take your fears, take your nerves, put them in a ball and say, I'm jumping with you, right? And go for it. Screw it, let's do it. Because it's really just like a jump out of a plane. It's just those first few moments that are the worst and the toughest. Once you're kind of cruising and sailing and it feels, wow, free, you'll be in your presentation and it will start to flow and you'll get the interaction with your audience because you're delivering something great, and you'll start to feel great and you'll feed off the confidence of your audience, and that will make you feel even better. So that is it, right? Oprah's car, practice, 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 and screw it, let's do it, or screw it, just do it. Those 3, I promise you, are going to give you a huge amount of confidence when it comes to your public speaking. Now, there's obviously loads more that we cannot cover. I'm trying to keep these short to about, I've done it, just about half an hour, right? So you still have time to continue your conversations at lunch. But trust me, those things was really, really help. Listen, if you want to learn more, if you want to if you're at the stage where you really are serious about your communication skills, you want to kind of have a chat with me, what I'd suggest is go to this link here. I'm going to put the picture up here. I hope you can see that. So this is my page where you can book in a chat with me. It's called greatspeech.co/get-started. You'll come to a page like this. Look, there's a little video with me, and you can book in a free session with me and we'll just have a chat. You can look at how I coach. I'm a bit tough when I coach, so have a look at that. But if you want to kind of have a chat with me, just book in for yourself in my page here, go to this calendar, and you and I can kind of have a chat about that. So that's it, right? I'm hoping that's been of benefit. Just going to look at some of the comments. We've got Stephanie's in there. Hey, Stephanie, how you doing? Great to see you. Ron as well. Mr. Daniel, nice to see you. Les, screw it, let's do it. Yes. I agree, as long as you prepared. I guess it's the old adage, fail to prepare, prepare to fail. Absolutely. Nina, I'm glad that helped. Thanks, Les. Glad that was of value as well. So yeah, thank you guys for joining. That's just over the half hour, but I'm going to be easy on myself since it's my first LinkedIn Live. Thanks for those of you who have joined me for the first time. Hope this has been of some value. LinkedIn user is all it says. Really great. Thank you. I don't know who you are, but I appreciate the comment nonetheless. And yes, I will see you guys at another lunchtime. Oh, Alison, hey, thank you. Really appreciate that. Thanks for sharing as well. I'll see you guys at another time. for LinkedIn Live with Kola. I've got to come up with some cool name for this, right? I think I've titled it How I Say That. So I'll keep working on that. But see you guys at another time. If the lunchtime work for you, let me know, because I'll probably keep it to around this time with something else. So thank you guys. Appreciate the comments. Gary Cobb, another LinkedIn user, don't know what your name is, Alison. Thank you guys for joining me, for holding my hand, as it were, as I work through this LinkedIn Live stuff for my first one. See you guys next time. Cheers.